Good evening, everybody. Look forward to you coming into the program. I'm going to get started tonight. And as I said to you, tonight's program is going to be specifically about building and understanding that we have to have organized an agenda in order for us to move forward, right? In order for us to move forward, we've got to have an organized approach, and we have to do it beyond egos and all of those other things that have been the detractors from us making the kinds of progress that we need to make. And I hope that you all will join me, but if you don't, I'm going to do this video. I would hope that you would share this with other people in your network, in your social network, your social media network. I would hope that you would share this with them and ask them to join us for this conversation. And I want to make sure that we have, a substantive conversation about this tonight, because we are being our worst enemies in terms of failing to do the basic fundamental that we need to do that will give us the power to make decisions, to give us the power to influence public policy, to advantage our communities in the way that we know that our communities need. But that cannot happen if we continue to operate in silos. Now, somebody called the program the other night, and they started talking about that we have to educate people on how to vote on their own self-interest. Individualism is not something that we have the luxury. We don't have the luxury. It is a toxic poison. Now, I am not going to focus on any issues tonight. Tonight is strictly to deal with us and understanding what we must do. Now, for those who don't want to collaborate, those who want to operate in individualism, I'm not speaking to those persons. I'm not going to change their mind. I want to talk with those who understand the principle of collaboration, though we've never done it in an institutionalized way. We've never done it like having a union. And that is precisely what we need to do. That is precisely what I am talking about, to empower us as a community of people. If we can build a large enough block, we can be the advocates for the rest of our communities, for those people who have not yet believed and are still focused on some ideology of the past. And as my former pastor would say, if you want to get to a place that you have never gone, then you have got to travel a pathway that you've never traveled. If you want to do something that you've never done, then you've got to do, or if you want to get to a place that you've never gone, you got to do something that you've never done. If you want to do something else, you got to do something you've never done. And the one thing that we have never done, we've mobilized on certain issues, we've mobilized on certain candidates, but we've never organized ourselves in a fashion where we can come as a block of voters, as our own independent union, that we can discuss, we can debate, we can have discussion, we can strategize, and then we can collectively determine the exact same way that unions do. We need our own union of a Black independent voting bloc so that we have the power. In other words, that we can operate in the power that others are operating in, so that we can determine what it is that we want to do, that we want done. We can determine that. Where I am located here in Chicago and in this region in the Midwest, we have in Chicago and in the Chicagoland area proper, the suburbs included, we have a tremendous population of Black residents, Black voters, that if in fact we brought ourselves together at a certain number of people, even if we started at 100,000, we could literally, and I mean literally, turn the tide on the way public policy is legislated in our cities, in our county, and in the state. Why? Because there is no one who can win a citywide election in Chicago, a countywide election in Chicago, without the Black vote. There is no one who can win a statewide election without the Black vote, predominantly coming from Cook County. And people who have run for public office, Black and white, have curried the Black vote. And, you know, we have been fractionized, but we largely go and vote for a particular candidate. But because we didn't choose the candidate, somebody else chose the candidate or the candidates and said to our community, these are the people that you get to choose from. What I am talking about is the complete reverse of that. That we get to determine who the candidates are going to be, And we get to determine that those candidates get elected in those particular seats. What power is having the wherewithal and the ability to determine one's outcome. That's power. There are two forms of power in our political process that you have to have one or the other. You have to have either a big checkbook or you have to have a lot of votes. We do not individually have the big checkbook where we are billionaires that we can write 10, 15, 20 million dollars funds to try and win an election. And in fact, there have been billionaires who've tried that in the last two elections here, and it didn't work. Thankfully. What I am saying is that more votes always will defeat big checkbooks. Now, you need to have resources, but we can get to the resources. But the resources aren't going to do us any good, or to talk about the resources now, unless we are going to collaborate ourselves together so that those resources benefit our efforts. See, this is not about any one person. It is about every one of us. And we have got to understand that we cannot have the ideology of individualism or this ideology of self-interest. Somebody called the program on Monday night, on my Monday night program when we were on intellectualradio.com, as well as YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. And she talked about this, and I know where it came from. But it's coming from a failed position, and I'm going to explain to you. On the surface, it sounds good. She said that we have to educate people so that they can vote their own self-interest. On the surface, that sounds good. But you have to unpack the very definition of self-interest. This is the very definition of self-interest, which is why it is a toxic cancer. And we cannot allow for ourselves to be sucked into further political inequity and destruction. This is the definition of self-interest. Self-interest is the act of prioritizing one's own needs or desires, one's personal interest or advantage, especially when pursued without regard for others. That's what self-interest is. That we cannot move forward, we cannot rise, we could not improve the conditions in our communities. We must, if we are going to drastically, and I'm talking about radically, moving our communities forward, addressing those ills and those issues that have plagued our communities, that have frustrated many of us, from education to economics and everything in between, education and economics being the bookends to housing, health, mental health, justice, equity, careers, all of those things in between education and economics. That if we position ourselves and build a strong, united team of a Black voting bloc, that our strength in any of the areas of concern, any of the organizations that are currently and continually advocating on behalf of our communities, will have power behind them, because we have a collective number of people who have finally committed ourselves to coming together. This is not about any of us talking about who is going to do this or who is going to do that. There are people already doing the work. We need to put ourselves in a position so that we could be empowered for them to get the work actually done, implemented in our governmental system that we pay into, so that we make the demands and the dictates on what public policy looks like and how those resources are allocated. This is not about anybody's personal agenda, egos, any of that. We have got to abandon all of those things that have plagued us from moving ourselves forward. Because I am going to tell you, we are not moving forward continuously being disconnected, being fractionized for our own quote unquote self-interest. That toxic, suicidal, politically philosophy. That's what it is. We have got to get rid of that, starting with myself and you and everybody else. We have to commit ourselves to each other. We commit ourselves to the broader objective and agenda for our communities. If, in fact, you really care about your communities, then you will take a selfless approach to being a willing participant, to be a collective advocate, and saying, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to first team ourselves together to make ourselves strong. Once we have the strong team, whatever plan we put into place, whatever game plan we put into place, we can dominate the game. And we can discontinue allowing for others to dominate us and to misuse us in dominating the game. That there is this disproportion of equity where the largest goes somewhere else and they send something to our community that we can't even measure. But they give us these placebos. Now, I'm not talking about these people. I mean, you're going to have people who think that they're going to go out and do well. Look, individualism, let me tell you something. We have always had African American people individually doing well. Even in slavery, the house slave, though still a slave, had certain privileges that the field slaves did not have. So individually, black people, we've had black people to do well. That's not what I'm talking about. And individually, we're going to always continue to have black people doing well. Hell, individually, I'm doing well. You know, if I had a selfish nature, which I thank God that my mother embodied me not to have, I could just go and enjoy whatever it is that I want to do. But the reality is, we don't have that luxury. That was reinforced to me by a few things that I've seen, a few conversations that I've had, and some messages that I have heard that has driven me to this focus that we have got to adopt. We have got to adopt it if we want to see our communities transform. And I am not talking about 20 years from now. If we were to do this and we set a goal to say that we are going to get focused over the next 12 months, that we're going to get focused to organizing and getting people signed on board to be a part of this block. 10 by 10 to win is the block that we are going to go out in every area where we live, whatever your precinct is, whatever your city is, wherever your ward is, that it is going to become contagious. And wherever you are, to have that energy and to transfer that to the people who trust you wherever you are, and continue that we are not going to stop until we build our own union and we have this 100,000, which is the start, the 100,000 people. We get the 100,000, the others, it will be easier for us to get to 200,000. Because why? 100,000 people is going to draw the attention of every person currently in political office. Why? Because that's 100,000 votes. And if we strategize to say, okay, we are going to use our 100,000 votes and we're going to mobilize on the ground to add to that 100,000 to support whatever candidates that we have corporately decided on. See, everything that we do it models what they do in a union. And what they do in a union is they get together, they have the information, they have and develop their strategy, they develop their agenda of what they want. And then but they have to first have the team. You can't develop a strategy that is going to have any power without having a team. There is no need for a game plan if you don't have a team to compete in the game. But this is for our very lives. That's why I wanted to have this conversation tonight specifically about that, not about any issues. We got plenty of time that we can talk about issues, but guess what? We can talk about issues. We can analyze issues all we want to. We can get paralyzed in analyzing issues. And that's all we will be doing, is paralyzed to where we are unable to move. Doesn't make any difference how intelligent you are or how much information you have or who you know. It does not matter. If you and I can go out our doors and go to our neighborhoods and see the erosion of our communities holistically, the erosion of our communities, the erosion of our public learning institution, the erosion of our economic institutions, our economic viability corporately, the erosion of career opportunities for people to go to a job right 15, 20 minutes from their home, where in the 1960s and in the 1970s, the 50s, 60s, and 70s, 70% of all Black employment right here in Chicago was in labor, and you could go to your job 15 minutes or less from your home. You didn't have to have the longest commute to get to and from work as we do in the Black community. The longest commute to get paid the lowest of wages comparatively. But all of that can change, drastically change, simply by us organizing ourselves together. Now, we are not going to get everybody, and we don't have to get everybody. We just need to get enough of our people who are like-minded, who want to win for all of our community, not just for ourselves. We're not getting together to just win for the group of people who are together. No, we are doing this to win for all of our people, because when all of our communities win, then we all win. We have to be able to experience that model, to know that you are not successful, and you're not just, your success does not depend on the majority not being successful. The more people that are successful, and there are different levels of success, more people want to have a good living so that they can provide for themselves and their family. They're not interested in trying to go start a business and get wealthy. There are some people who want to do that. We want to provide for both. We want the opportunity for both. But in order for us to do that, we have got to build the strength, the muscle, the mission. What is the mission? The mission is what you see posted. The mission is for us to bring ourselves together so that we can finally organize ourselves together so that we have the power to slate, select, and elect people who are going to represent the interest and the demands of our community. We can dictate. We have the wherewithal to dictate to anybody who is in a public office, whether they're black or white, female or male. And we control the office. How do we control the office? Is because we have a block. We have a block of voters and a block of people who are going to be working in unison to advance the agenda for our communities. And when somebody is working against that agenda, who is an elected official, whether they're an alderman, a mayor, a Cook County Board commissioner, a Cook County Board president, a governor, a lieutenant governor, whatever the position is, a state representative, a state senator, if they're not doing what we demand, then we have the power to say to them, we will replace you. And then we replace them. We don't have the power to do that. We have the power to run our mouth to say it, but we don't have the power to do it. And the only reason that we don't have the power to do it is because we have not organized ourselves in a fashion so that we can strategize and say, we are sending these many votes to this state representatives, to this state senator, and we are going to elect the person that we've selected. I gave the example of what happened in the primaries. You see, the primary election here in Illinois, primary elections is where the decision is made. Whoever gets elected in the primary becomes the person who is elected in the general election. But we have fewer people who participate in the primary than we do in the general election, because it's basically decided in the primary. So we have more people who are going to the polls in the general election, and I'm talking about local, statewide elections, than did in the primary election. And the decision is already made because most people who get elected in the primary have really no opposition in the general. So the primary is where we really can have force. That's why you hear people who are saying on the federal level that if they don't go along with the MAGA group, they're going to get primaried, because that's where it happens. We need to do the same thing. And if we are not willing to abandon the ideology of individualism and adopt the attitude and make the commitment of having a collective working unit. This is not about anybody being anybody's boss. Listen, every union has a president, but that president takes directives from the body. We are going to function the same way. We have the block, we have discussions, we have internal elections, and whatever we elect and decide in that, I have to carry that mandate to anybody, whether it's a governor or mayor. That's the agenda. So it is the body who decides the agenda. I'm merely the messenger for the body. That's what a union steward or a union board president is. The union board president doesn't set the agenda. The union board president represents the agenda of the body. The block is the body that makes the determination. There are no unilateral determinations or decisions about who is going to be a candidate or who it is that we're going to support or what the legislative agenda is going to be. None of that. None of that. So we are going to model a union. We're going to model the same model of how unions operate. Now, we talk a lot about the Chicago Teachers Union here. I mean, that's the popular one to beat up on, or people to say that, how strong they are. The Chicago Teachers Union only has 30,000 members, but they have been able to build coalitions outside of their 30,000 members. They have the United Working Families, which they have a huge following between the Hispanic community, largely, and few whites and few black folks. Stacey Davis Gates is the chairperson of United Working Families. That was something that was started with Brandon Johnson, Stacey Davis Gates, and other members of the Chicago Teachers Union back in 2013. And look how strong they are today. Look how influential they are today. They've been able to get 19 people elected to office. And here we are as the black community, and not only get them elected to office, but those persons have to make sure that they are representative of that body, because if they don't, they themselves will be replaced. This is what we have to do. This is what we must do if we are going, or if we're serious about wanting substantive, qualitative advancement for our communities. The South side of Chicago, the Southeast side of Chicago, the West side of Chicago, there are things coming into this state as a result of federal policies that have been passed over these past 4 years that's coming to this state. And we are going to get the least. And the reason why that is because we're not being proactive. You got people who want to sit around and show how smart they are and beat up on other people, or to say how ignorant these voters are, or that voter is, or that group is. That's counterproductive. And it doesn't make any difference how bright they are or how bright you are, when in fact we don't have the power to make anything happen. And the only reason I say we don't have the power to make it happen is because we haven't plugged into it. It's no different than having a lamp that sits dark next to a plug. The beautiful lamp, but it has no power until it plugs itself in, or someone plugs it in to the electric, and it will light up and overtake darkness. This is the very thing that we can do, not might be able to, not taking a chance. No, this is deliberate. This is intentional. We will be intentionally empowered, and we empower ourselves. Nobody gives it to us. We pull all of the lampshades together and we plug ourselves in We weave ourselves together like a spider weaving a web together. It is said that a spider web woven together can overtake a lion. Our problem is that we are fractionized. We are disconnected from each other. And there has not been this consistent effort in order for us to connect ourselves together so that we are intricately woven together, that we have the power to overtake any person in power, whether that be the governor, the mayor, senator, state rep, congressperson. When we have organized that power, when we have organized that power, you will see that Congress representatives who won't even look our way will be calling, trying to figure out how they can get an audience, to find out what it is we want. This is before an election even is in sight. We want to be in the position that we will be able to elect and impact the primaries in 2 years. That every person who is in, the congressional, the Senates, that we are going to have a significant voice. If in fact we put together 100 people in this block, it's going to draw national implications, national attention. Why is it going to do that? Because there is nowhere in the United States of America that 100,000 Black people have united themselves together as a political force. Never happened. Doesn't exist right now. No, we get mobilized by certain people who have, gotten our attention, and we, have, other people who have said that this is the person that we should be supporting. We say, okay, well, this is who they say we should support. So we fall in line and we support that person. When that person gets elected, they don't have any allegiance to us because we just got in line. We fell in line and followed orders. We didn't dictate the orders. We didn't make the mandate. We didn't set the mandate because we haven't put ourselves in a position so that we can set the mandate. So that is what we must do. How do we do it? 10 by 10. Why have we chosen that methodology? That methodology is set up because each one of us has a circle of people, whether it's our family or friends, that trust you. And you can go to your circle and ask for the people in your circle of friends and family to join the block. And you get your 10 people who trust you, and they go to get their 10 people who trust them, and we continue to do it. Now, if we did this 5 times, if we use that methodology 5 times over. Let me just show you what using 10 by 10 5 times over will deliver to us as a Black independent union voting bloc. Union was only used because of uniting. If 10 of us go out and get 10 people, that's 100 people. You see it there? Let me see if I can point to it. Right here. Okay. 10 times 10 is 100. If the 100 goes and gets 10, then we are at 1,000. If the 1,000 gets 10, we're at 10,000. And then if the 10,000 gets 10, we're at 100,000. And that's 4 times. If we do it one more time, we have reached 1 million people. I'm telling you that if we get energized behind that and go all over this city, whether we have pop-up events talking about organizing ourselves together. Can you imagine 100,000 of us with this? You see this is the 10 by 10 to win polo shirt. And we're in Grant Park having a rally of 100,000 people, Black people having a rally in Grant Park, or having a rally on the South Side, or having a rally on a park on the West Side, or on Rainbow Beach. Anywhere is going to draw astronomical attention from everywhere. And that is real power. Now, when we have the participation, then we can start talking about getting the resources that we need to do those things. Now we will be able to self-fund anything that we do without overtaxing anybody. Because if we have 100,000 people and 100,000 of us are giving $10 a month, we're raising $1 million to fund whatever we have to get, whether we have to get permits, if we have to rent large facilities, to pay for campaigns, to pay for whatever legal services that we would need. In other words, we will be able to fund. Now, there is no point right now in talking about money or, getting people to do it until we get people to really understand the methodology of organizing ourselves in a vast number, that we will have the power, that the body will say, look, okay, Mr. Wallace, these are the things that we have voted on as a body. And I have to take that message to whatever representative that it is and say to that representative, Miss or Mr. Representative, these are what our demands are. And these demands have to be met. And if you can't meet those demands, then we have to find somebody who can meet those demands, which means that we have to replace you in that office. And then we go to the next representative and we say the same thing. And how are we going to be able to do that? Because the more people that we are bringing into the union, the more landscape we are covering in terms of districts. If we got 10,000 people from each ward within the city limits of Chicago, where we largely live, which are 20 wards, that's 200,000 people. 200,000 votes in Chicago will determine any seat, mayor, alderman, city clerk, city treasurer, state representative, state's attorney, which is the county, we have now significant influence to really dictate at the polls, to say to anybody, you don't respect us, we'll hire somebody else who does. That is what you and I have the potential to do if we make the commitment to do it. Now, I'm asking everybody, if you haven't done so, please, if you know, and I'm going to send this out again, text so that you can get into the text alert. All right. And let's just have a ball at doing this. Let's have a ball at doing this. And I mean, we are going to be able to transform our communities. I mean, transform our communities. We're going to be able to do that when we organize ourselves together. Okay, so text 10x10 to 855-909-1385. All right. And then that way you'll receive the Zoom link on tomorrow. We're going to be having a Zoom meeting at 6:30, but you'll receive the Zoom link that goes out somewhere in the afternoon between 1 and 2 o'clock. And then you can share that with other people and ask them to get on the Zoom. And let's energize and support each other, because obviously the more people that we see and the more people that we see participating gives us that much more motivation to go out and collaborate. And then we'll start having cluster meetings around the city and around the county or where you live. If you want to have a cluster meeting and you want for us to come so that we can explain the whole idea of what this block is, building the institutionalizing the Black independent voting block so that we can address our issues. And we can make demands about our issues, but we first have to build the team. And once we have built the team, this is how it works. Now we have the block together. We have the infrastructure of the block together. Then what happens is we strategize, and we put together a corporate agenda of things that we want to see changed and things that we want to see implemented. Now we put together that agenda. Then we vote as a body. And of course, in any union, the majority of whatever way we vote, that means whatever that is, gets selected by the majority. And then as a whole, we come out supporting whatever the majority have voted for. That's what the agenda is, right? That's what the agenda is. The same thing about elections. Now, we may have people who have a willingness and a desire to serve in public office. Then we have internal votes for the different people that we are going to corporately select to run for certain offices. There may be people who are already in office that we want to take a look at. But the people who are already in office, we're going to make demands upon them because they are in the seat. So we're going to go to them first and make the demands of them and to see if they can deliver. If they can't deliver, then we have to replace them. It's just that simple. We have to replace them. Look, if you want to give me a call, you can at 951-221-8221. 951-221-8221 is the guest calling number. So you can give me a call if you want to, chime in on this conversation. But what I am saying to all of us is that we have got to change our behavior. Bottom line, if you want something you've never had, you got to do something you've never done. That's the bottom line. My pastor used to say that all the time. My former pastor used to say that all the time. If you want something that you've never had, then that means you have to do something that you've never done. You want to go someplace that you've never been? You've got to travel on a road that you've never traveled. In other words, we just have to change. It's enough with the cliches, but we have to change. And I'm just making the point. We have got to change what we're doing, because what we're doing, we're getting further and further and further unnoticed until somebody needs our votes. And then they recognize. And we fall right into it and we buy the hype. Now you have those people who are saying, well, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but it's that's all, well and good, but yeah, well, you get people motivated, and some people will do this, but you got to get your butt out of the way. That was another sermon that my former pastor talked about. Get your butts out of the way. Now, I am telling all of us. I'm not just speaking to you. I'm speaking to me, that this is what we have to do if only if we really want to see significant change. Only if we want to see significant change. This is what we have to do. You're not going to see significant change by saying, okay, I'm going to go vote for the Republicans because, the Democrats did this or didn't do that. Well, let's see how that has worked out for you, because it hadn't worked out for you in the last 50 years. But if you don't have power to influence whoever, it doesn't make any difference what the label is. And while we're talking about this a little bit, is that this ideology of saying, well, I'm just going to go on across the street since, they're not perfect over here. I want to ask you this question. I want you to think about this. Most of us have a car. Most of us have a car. Some of us have a newer car. Some of us have had a car for a little while. If I said to you, if I asked you the question, have you ever had to take your car in for a repair? And you said to me, yeah, I've had to take my car in for a repair. I had a little problem with air condition, wasn't cooling, so I had to take the car in. And I say to you, no, Don't take your car in for a repair. If the air condition is not working well and the rest of the car is working, don't take it in. Just go get a whole nother car. Get rid of that car and go buy a whole nother car. Just because the air condition is broken, okay, go buy another vehicle. Don't fix the air condition. I mean, even if the rest of the car is working, don't fix the air. Just go buy another vehicle. That's all you do. Just go buy another car. And you look at me and you say, that is crazy. Why would I go out and buy, spend 30, 40, $50,000 buying another car when I can spend $200 or $500 and fix this part and the car runs just like new? And I say to you, yeah, that makes sense. Because you say to me, because what I just said didn't make any sense. And you know what? You would be correct. You'd be absolutely correct. Why? It is the same thing when we start talking about the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party has delivered most of what we enjoy today. Republicans, whatever they may have given to us, they've taken it back. During Reconstruction and they gave us, affirmative action, but then they took it back. So whatever little bit we got from the Republicans, they took it back. Everything that we've lost, they've eroded. So my point to you is this. We put ourselves together. We put ourselves together in the numbers that we need to, in the bond that we need to, as a union of black voters. Then we have the power to go to whoever it is that is in office, and we make that demand, whoever it is, no matter who the personality is. If Brandon Johnson is the person as the mayor, Governor Pritzker is the person as the governor, whoever the state reps, state senators in our areas, we can go to them and demand, and they must deliver, even if they don't want to. Why? Because they'll pay a price. Same thing that the MAGA group is doing. Making just about every Republican who don't even want to go along with their insurrectionist ideology, they have to not buck the system because they know they will pay a price. The methodology works for anybody who works it. So we might as well use the same methodology because our communities are worth it. Not to be destructive, but to be constructive for the future and for the prosperity of our communities. When you have power, then we can make the mandates. We can make the demands. And those demands can be met. Again, individualism and individual self-interest is a suicide mission. It is a suicide mission. So I want to say to you in closing, to please share this video. And I want to also ask you to please join me tomorrow, but you got to text 10x10 to the number 855-909-1385 so that you can receive the Zoom meeting link and join the meeting and participate. We want to hear from you. We get excited every time that there is a new addition to the block. We get excited. So I'm asking you, those of you who listen tonight, please, if you believe that collaborating ourselves together is a good way and a necessary way, I ask you to please join the meeting tomorrow and share with some others to join us tomorrow. That's all you have to ask people to do, and get them to do it. Send a text to the number 855-909-1385. Text 10x10 to the number 855-909-1385. I'm going to end this live, and then I'm going to be going live on Facebook for just a few minutes. For those who were not able to get on, but those who will get on the live on Facebook, I'm going to be continuing this conversation on live. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. Thank you, Mike Burries. I really appreciate you always being there and spreading the message and being supportive of that. Let's develop strategies on how we can reach more people. All right. I'm going to see you all in just a few minutes. Thank you all so much. And we're going to continue to share this video. Thank you so much.